Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX141 Walsh, welcoming you to an all new World of Warships gameplay today on our channel. In this episode we shall be featuring the Tier 1 Russian cruiser known as the Orlan. This is a Tier 3 match on the map Solomon Islands, and it is a standard battle type. And as a result, straight away some of you may be thinking, well if this is a Tier 3 match and it features a Tier 1, then it's got to be a failed division gameplay. Now that is very true. And you're not seeing the game from my perspective, but from my buddy Zouron, or Z in short, who is in the Orlan, whilst I've pulled him into this game using my Tier 3 Japanese battleship known as the Kawachi. Now the reason I'm showcasing this gameplay, well there are two reasons in fact, is firstly because in my personal opinion this is one of the most impressive gameplays I've ever seen in my time in World of Warships, simply for the amount of damage Z that is going to put out in a Tier 1 ship. And I would go as far to say that this is one of the highest damage, if not the highest damage gameplay ever attained in an Orlan. But secondly, and more importantly, it is how Z does this, and it is something we can all learn from. His positioning as part of the division, working alongside myself, is going to favour him very well and allow my Kawachi to stay alive for as long as possible, even when the odds are stacked against us. So, we've started off in the southeastern corner of the map. The spawn point means that because we have started in the centre of our spawn, that Z and I are going to make our way towards the centre. I'm going to take a little bit of a wider approach because with the lower top speed of my battleship, it means that I'm not going to get to the centre as quickly as Z can, with the Orlan having a top speed of 25 knots. In the meantime, he is going to provide a little bit of vision towards the centre for any of the two enemy destroyers, both Japanese, one Imikaze and one Wakataki, who may decide to throw some torpedoes down the centre. At the very minimum, he can spot the torpedoes as they come in. In the meantime, I'll start making my way up towards the northeast, and Z will reunite with myself a little bit later. So as Z makes his way forward then, providing that vision that we've stated, let us talk a little bit about the Orlan. So we know its top speed, which is not too bad for a Tier 1 cruiser, and indeed is the fastest of the Tier 1 cruisers. So what about its armour? Well, the armour is garbage. 6mm is a minimum and 10mm is a maximum. This ship can be easily citadeled with high explosive, just like it can with armour piercing, and with only 9,100 health, this ship is going to fall apart very quickly through sustained impact. But on the plus side, its artillery is very good. You have two twin 130mm cannon turrets. Now these turrets are identical practically to the two 130mm twin cannon turrets on the Tier 6 Russian destroyer known as the Ognivoy. There are only two differences. Firstly, in terms of firing range, only being 8.8 km here is standard, although Z does have advanced firing training on his captain, extending the range out to 10.5 km, and that the high explosive rounds on this ship have a 7% fire chance, not 8%. Otherwise the guns are identical, whereby he can fire a salvo off every 5 seconds, brought down to 4.5 seconds with basic firing training as his captain's skill. And on top of this, when the rounds penetrate and cause a citadel with armour piercing, they will take off a maximum of 2,500 health per shot. Now what about the manoeuvrability? Well, this ship is highly manoeuvrable. It is quite fast, but it also has a rudder shift time of 2.4 seconds, meaning this ship can wiggle itself around the battlefield and evade incoming fire, which it really needs to do. The other key thing to think about is that the concealment of the ship is not too bad. A 7.9km detectability by sea is standard, meaning this ship can bring targets well within its artillery range before it does get spotted. It has a 0.9km window to go undetected, as long as the ship that it's going up against is not as hard to detect or harder to detect by comparison with the Orlan. But nonetheless, with Z having provided a little bit of vision down the centre and we now have two cruisers tackling the enemy ships that are trying to contest the centre, he's making his way up into the northeastern corner and I am off towards his starboard side. Now Z is a little bit faster as we've already said, so as a result he's going to take the initiative here as an enemy Jakuma, the Tier 2 Japanese cruiser, comes within his range, and he very quickly spots that the ship is presenting a full broadside, and we are now going to see how powerful the armour piercing of the Orlan is. He opens fire at a distance of 10 km to start off with, and the shells go in. He takes off 1,075 health. He's going to do so again with a second barrage, but watch the third barrage come in. A citadel. That's 3,325 health taken off with his third salvo, and we can see here how the Orlan's armour piercing rounds against the broadsides of enemy cruisers even in some cases against tier 3, can shred the broadsides very easily. And this is something to be wary of. Now we must take into account here that the enemy Chikuma is having to contend with our own Mikaze, who is firing off torpedoes towards them, and at the same time they may be a newer player, hence why they are not turning out after taking so much damage, as he is about to pick up a second citadel if I remember correctly. Not yet, but very shortly. So we have to take that into account. But still, this is an impressive demonstration of the firepower that the Orlan has available. There's the second citadel as we promised, and very shortly Z is going to finish off the Chikuma for what will be his first kill. In the meantime, we and our Kawachi have fired off some shots, some high explosive rounds which took some health for the Chikuma, but Z has done most of the legwork here. Taking them out finally, and notice how there are only 3 of us on our team up in this northeastern corner. Myself and Z, and then an Umikaze just in front of us, providing some torpedo spreads and at the same time a little bit of further forward vision. Now Z took the initiative there to bring down the Chikuma. Now watch how he repositions himself for the next engagement. Now we know we have a Wakataki between us and that enemy South Carolina, although it's a little bit off to the right of the South Carolina, respectively. At the moment I'm opening up with my shells against the South Carolina. I'm trying to take its attention away from Z. Now the importance of this is because I have the health pool in my Chikuma, sorry, not in my Chikuma, in my Kawachi to go toe to toe. Battleship versus battleship, a typical engagement we would say. But as the South Carolina is enticed into engaging myself, it means that Z can now use his high explosive to great effect, catching up, bringing the South Carolina in range, and then opening up. And by setting the South Carolina on fire, he can cause it to bleed its health quite rapidly. And with his higher fire chance than some of the other cruisers at its tier, this means that he can set a number of fires before the ship goes down with its extended health pool, and we can see how his first barrage causes a fire. Now the South Carolina will put that out, but he will set at least one more fire before that ship goes down. And we opened up with our Kawachi's high explosive, and we attempted to set a fire but no success, and we will continue to try and set it on fire simply because we are too far away to get accurate shots with our armour piercing. The Kawachi has quite a high spread at its maximum range of 9.8 kilometers. But focusing back on Z, notice what he's now doing. So he's repositioned himself across the bow of my Kawachi because the Umikaze is trying to throw torpedoes towards the South Carolina. A little bit out of range perhaps, but the Umikaze's intentions are positive, and Z does not want to get in the way of our teammate. And at the same time he is cutting across the front of me to provide vision off to what would be my port side, if we look more towards the northern section of the map between the 2 land masses as seen in the bottom right hand corner of your screen on the minimap. So by doing this, he's affording some vision in case the enemy Wakataki tries to charge him with a set of torpedoes. He's playing in a defensive role for my ship. And by doing so, he's actually spotted an enemy Kawachi off to what would be our port sides. He continues to open up with high explosive on the South Carolina in the meantime, and continues to wiggle as well to make himself a harder target. And he provides vision for a set of torpedoes coming from the Wakataki, so straight away he is providing that vision screen for us. Position being very crucial here as we can see. Now continuing to open fire here and doing good amounts of damage with high explosive, he now pulls back across. Reason being, he's a little bit worried that perhaps the Kawachi will focus its fire towards him rather than my own ship now. And as a result, by cutting back across, he's provided some vision against the Wakataki's torps, which take a little bit of time to reload. The Umikaze has now repositioned itself across where Z was originally, and this means that the Umikaze is now providing the vision that I need in my battleship to avoid torpedoes, or at least take the minimum amount possible. Z sets another fire on the South Carolina in the meantime, and he can continue to open fire without taking any return fire simply because the South Carolina is so heavily focused on my own ship. This means that Z is racking up damage, another fire set as well, but rather than continue to fire on an almost dead South Carolina that will burn to death, he realises that an enemy Umikaze has broken through the middle of the map in his flanking round as Z picks up his second kill. Now this is very important here, because what this means is right now that the 3 ships on our team, myself, Z and the Umikaze, could get pincered from 2 sides, but instead he has turned around, and as we're communicating on TeamSpeak right now, he is saying to me, you need to press forward but be wary of the Wakataki. In the meantime, he is going to cover my rear and take down the enemy Tier 3 Soviet cruiser known as the Bogatyr, or at least when he gets a clear line of sight. In the meantime, he opens fire on the Wakataki that is hiding a smoke screen, and we must assume here that its torpedoes on the way. So I'm trying to turn my aft towards the torpedoes, trying to minimise the amount I take, but as we're going to see, I'm going to take a lot of them, and there's nothing Z can do. In the meantime, he is trying to head back towards my aft side to prevent the Wakataki from being able to get back within close range and to lure the Wakataki's attention away from my own ship. As if I take another set of successful torpedoes like that, it is very likely I'll be practically dead. Now, having repositioned himself, he's got a clear line of shot on the enemy Bogatyr, setting it on fire, covering off the rear of our little force. He's going to take them out, picking up his third kill. So now at 30,007 damage, we can see how Z has used his positioning around the capital ship of our small fleet in order to help us all stay alive and do a lot of damage. But it will continue, and by cutting across the Wakataki, he has distracted it into firing its torpedoes off, as we can see here, or at least he and the Yamakaze have done so. But now, with the Yamakaze providing the vision required to spot the Wakataki as their smokescreen goes away, he opens fire and sets it on fire. The fire goes out, but he'll continue to harass it as it wiggles from side to side. Unfortunately missing a little bit there, but trying to get some shots around the island. But nonetheless, he now reunites with my ship. Now we can see that the Wakataki is going away, so for Z to pursue the Wakataki would be a waste of time, or at least if he pursued it, he would eventually fall behind it as the Wakataki is a lot faster than the Orlan, and he would leave me alone to die. Now I'm trying to go for a hill at this point in my Kawachi, which is now off to Z's port side. You cannot see it obviously. And the Wakataki is pulling away, but as we can see on the minimap, he's going to be coming around the northern side of the island in front of us. Well, that was in our perspective camera a second ago. So as a result, Z is getting ready to counter this. He is slowing himself down, and what he is saying to me at this point is, over TeamSpeak, go ahead and go towards the capture point, take the fight and try to bring down the ships that are capturing. In the meantime, he is going to hold himself back, so that way the Wakataki, when it comes around, will have to contend with Z, and at the minimum try to throw its torpedoes towards him and I, rather than just get a clean shot on my Kawachi. So again, a brilliant demonstration of position and coordination here. He is providing the rear cover that we need to be able to try and contest our capture point and prevent it from being taken. As the enemy team at this point have really got the upper hand and the numbers are not looking in our favour. And right on the dollar, we can see how Z has spotted the Wakataki, providing that rear guard action, and now he will contest it, knocking off a small chunk of its health. And as the Wakataki heads towards us, potentially having fired off its 7km torpedoes already, he continues to drop rounds in. A little bit inaccurate at first, but his accuracy will eventually tighten. I fire some of my high explosive rounds, completely missing, and there we go, another fire set and a huge chunk taken out of the Wakataki, and he can start to rip it to pieces. Another 1000 health taken out of it at least. He opens up another barrage, falling a little bit in front, but the Wakataki's been quite evasive, and he will eventually get it. As they go charging in, potentially for another close range torpedo run on myself or Z. And Z puts in another load of shots, getting an incapacitation. The Wakataki's now on 611 health. He carries on, and I take it out for, I believe, what is my first kill of the game. And the Wakataki did fire some torpedoes. But with the Orlan's ability to cut its speed very rapidly, and with its rudder shift being so good, like that 2.4 seconds, it means he can dodge those torpedoes. And unfortunately, the Wakataki did fire some towards me. Now, I have potentially taken another. We're not going to see that. I feel a little bit guilty taking the kill away from Z, but still, we worked together and we brought it down. And now a bigger foe is coming up behind us quite slowly, an enemy Kawachi, the one from earlier. Now I'm typing into the chat at this point that we need to spot the cap. I'm asking the Yamakaze to do so that way I can try and bring what's left of my ship to bear in terms of its armament and try to prevent the cap for as long as possible. At this point, Z is taking the attention of the Kawachi away from my ship. Reason being, he's highly manoeuvrable, and with the Kawachi's very poor dispersion at range, it is very likely that the Kawachi is going to miss, especially if Z starts to wiggle his ship around. So as a result, he is going to distract the Kawachi for as long as possible, and if he can set some fires, that's even better. It means he can start to bleed out the health of the ship, whereby it has so much health that it's going to take a lot of rounds to bring it down in the Orlan. But he can try. He's knocking off good chunks at the moment with high explosive, but as those parts of the hull that he's hitting become blackened, he's not going to be taking off as much anymore. He sets a fire. Now it's likely the Kawachi will put it out, and some more shells come in, but we can see the massive dispersion or inaccuracy of the shells mean that he can stay unharmed for the time being. And then he takes a nasty high explosive shell. It appears to hit the superstructure in his own little ship, not doing any citadel damage, and he just evades some more shells. He's getting a little bit closer to the Kawachi now, and we can see how by wiggling around he's had to bleed a good portion of his speed, and the Kawachi's been able to close the distance. But at the same time, notice on the minimap how Z is trying to close up behind me, as I'm turning myself around now to try and provide him with some support. I'm turning away as well to try and bring my rear guns to bear on the capture point, and we're both trying to survive at this point because there are 5 enemy ships in the cap. All hope seems to be lost here, and it is a case of survival for our ships now. So we're going to try and work together to bring down this enemy Kawachi. So I'm starting to pull the attention away from Z. We can see the Kawachi's guns are being aimed towards my own ship rather than his, as he sets another fire on our opponent here. He sets another fire once again, showing that good fire chance coming into effect here for the cruiser. And he's continuing to dump rounds in and increasing his damage. We cross one another, Z goes behind my ship at this point, and I'm taking shells from both sides at this point. And he now switches his attention to the other enemy Kawachi because he knows the one he's been engaging has lost a lot of health, and it's not going to lose too much more health from high explosive rounds due to the fact its hull has been blackened, a feature in game that you need to be aware of, and I was not for a good portion of games to start with. So by switching to the other enemy ships in the cap, he's going to try and prevent the cap for as long as possible, using his range to good effect as I get taken out by the enemy Kawachi. And at the same time as well, if he can set some fires, he'll pick up even more damage. But now it's essentially him and one of our destroyers all the way down in the southeastern corner of the map. Just 2 guys left standing on our team. Already Z alone against a huge mass of enemy ships. He sets a fire on the enemy Aurora, but he's starting to take hits, including a Citadel there for 2,100 health, showing how the low armour profile, in terms of its values of the Orlan, really works against it if you do not wiggle the ship. He's continuing to open fire at this point, not wiggling as much anymore, just trying to get the damage off. He sets another fire on the Aurora, and as a result, takes some return fire, armor piercing, and he is all by himself now. We're all dependent on him. Now we know he's not going to win this, but can he at least stay alive until the end of the game? He bumps into the edge of the map, unfortunately, turning his ship around at this point, and realises, or recalls, that there's an enemy Umikaze heading towards him, the other enemy destroyer, and he's starting to make his way up towards it, getting an incapacitation on the enemy Aurora, taking out one of its turrets temporarily, and he's going to continue the fight for as long as possible. Now the Aurora is dumping in high explosive rounds. He gets set on fire, he puts it out. The enemy Umikaze is charging towards him at this point, and it's on very low health. He's going to turn his attention very shortly. I think he's going to do a double take here. There's the double take. He picks up the high caliber award, but can he get his 4th kill? He puts some more rounds in. Can't you just need one more barrage, sir? And there you go, right on the cusp as the game ends. 4 kills, an impressive game. Now let's have a look at those post-game stats. What a match, and despite it being a defeat, Z fought to the bitter end and made it through. And in terms of what he received, 126,471 silver credits, 1,376 experience, and he picked up the high caliber award for damaging at least 4 enemy ships, and in terms of the total damage he dealt, this value exceeding 30% of the total health point pool of the enemy team. In terms of his battle performance, he accreted a grand total of 82,037 damage. That is impressive, folks. And in terms of the ribbons he picked up 173 target hit ribbons for his artillery batteries, 2 incapacitations, 4 enemy ships destroyed, unfortunately not a 5th for the Kraken, and partly that's my fault some would say, because I took out the Wakataki when he should have had it, 13 fires set, which is astonishing, 2 Citadel hits, and 1 base defend. And looking at the team scores, you would expect that when you're in your ship and you do just over 9 times your health pool in damage, and at the same time you are accountable for 2/3 of the kills picked up by your team in a given match, that you would come first in terms of base experience, with Z picking up 917, over double that of 2nd place in our team, and almost enough to rival 1st place on the enemy team, i.e. the enemy Kohlberg, picking up 1,162 base experience. And this was all from a teamwork mentality where Z positioned himself correctly in order to provide maximum fire support for the team as we pushed into the northeastern corner of the map. And the only time when his teamwork ethic broke down was when he was the last ship standing on our team. But otherwise, he did as much as possible to provide support and maximise his damage output for us all. Looking at his detailed report, there are 3 things to report here. 2 very noticeable things and 1 rather depressing item as well. Firstly, in terms of the main battery damage he caused, which was 57,975 HP, the vast majority of this was with high explosive, and Z knew when to pick his rounds. All the armour piercing damage he dealt was against the enemy Chikuma when it was presenting a broadside. Otherwise, all the other damage he dealt with his artillery batteries was simply with high explosive, predominantly against 2 enemy battleships, i.e. South Carolina and a Kawachi, but also against the enemy destroyers and some enemy cruisers when they drifted within his firing range and he was looking towards them. The second key point is in terms of the damage he dealt with the 13 fires he set. 24,062, just over half that of his high explosive damage. So he used his high explosive well not only to do base damage, but to also set fires and cause the ships with the longer cooldown times on their fire extinguishers to bleed health massively. And this moves us on to our rather depressing point, which is the first Kawachi Z engaged up in the northeastern core of the map almost bled to death alone on the high explosive damage he dealt and the resultant fires, being within 2,500 HP of burning to death, and he would then again have picked up his Kraken if that had occurred. And finally, coming on to credits and XP, we can see that after deductions, Z walked away with a total of 103,971 silver credits. To conclude, what can we take away from Z's gameplay for today? Simply put, teamwork itself is good, but the positioning of ships within a team is more important. We saw here how a trio of ships were able to fend off a superior enemy fleet for a significant period of time. The trio being Michael Archie at the centre, the anchor if you will as a battleship, and Z's Orlan and Afreni Makazi being around the periphery. At all points, Z made a point of trying to locate himself at the polar opposite end of the periphery compared to Ari Makazi, that way providing a 360-degree field of vision for our Kawachi and indeed our trio in terms of stealthy torpedoes coming in from 2 Japanese destroyers potentially, and at the same time providing vision of any new threats coming into the fray, and at the same time providing a 360-degree field of fire against any enemy ships at the front, the ones we're heading towards, and those that may be trying to come behind us to formulate a pincer manoeuvre. And we saw how Z was able to shut down a pincer manoeuvre towards the end as we're beginning to be overrun, and eventually we succumb to the superior firepower of the enemy fleet. But Z was able to hold on in the end by himself for his superior knowledge of how the Orlan performs, and I can see why you enjoy this ship so much, sir. Thank you for sending in this replay, and I hope that one day you're able to inscribe on the side of your Orlan the mighty Orlan, because you do her proud. And so I've been TX141, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future World of Warships gameplays on my channel. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and fair seas.